I think we're going to get started with our final panel for today. Sergio Otoya is going to talk about Auto Moto out of Toronto and the DIY rise of motorcycle shops internationally at this point. After that point, having written on this subject myself, we'll open it up to discussion and talk about this latest craze.
From Toronto, yes.
Yes, from Toronto. There we go. Okay, so first I want to introduce how that idea came about. When I always start with this question when I write the presentation. When did you stop working on your dream? So just keep that in the back of your mind. This idea of the do-it-yourself motorcycle shop came to me after I did a Trans-Canada trip on my bike. So as you can see, I was overloaded with luggage and not much common sense. I read somewhere on the blog that I could get to Vancouver in 4 days, and I figured that's the only bike I have, it'll do. Clearly, I packed way too much. So first day, before you knew it was getting dark. I said I was going to be sleeping on the side of the road. There were signs that would tell you that you shouldn't be stopping there because there's bears, and stay away from the bears, and they actually come to you. So I had nowhere to sleep. I ended up following a band to Tim Hortons, and I was just miserable waiting to see where I was going to sleep. Everything was booked up. Nice. I had the luck that a nice family took me in for the night. But yeah, so that's in Northern Ontario. As I was traveling, I actually made it past the first change of time zone. The second night, I managed to sleep on just on the side of the road. You had your bike and you just throw out your BB bag. Unfortunately, when I got to drive in Ontario, that's past Thunder Bay, I crashed my bike. Yeah, it was really unfortunate. I ended up taking a tow truck to the closest city where I can get anything done was Winnipeg. Luckily I had a friend in Winnipeg, and that's what my bike looked like afterwards. And when I got to Winnipeg, after I took everything that was broken, that's what my bike looked like. My friend has no tools. My friend had a garage. In Winnipeg, it's a little cheaper to have a house, but he had a garage, so I was lucky in that sense. So I ended up going out to buy basic tools, a lot of eBaying, trying to get parts for the bike. And finally, I managed to put the bike back together and get on the road. So just get on the road. I finally got to Vancouver. And then my final destination was Tofino because I wanted to go surf. So that was like the whole idea behind the trip. That's where they say the Trans-Canada ends. However, they're lying. It keeps going for another 100 kilometers. So I had 3 realizations when I got to Vancouver. One is I'm horrible at taking selfies. Realization number 2 is I needed a shower. I stunk. So I didn't stop at any hotels. I was sleeping on the side of the road. So I ended up at the aquatic center. Huge lineup. They were charging, I think, like $6 to get in, which was crazy for a shower, so I just managed to sneak in. Realization number 3, however, was I needed a place to work when I got back home. The condo garage, I kept getting in trouble with the condo board because for parking, they only let you park one vehicle. The neighbors were complaining about the little drop of oil. The neighbors were complaining about parking. Apparently she couldn't get her dog. Even though I was clear between lines, she couldn't get her dog out of the car. And it became like a huge fight with the condo board. I had the log that they had written that you can park a car or a motorcycle, which means it's not exclusive to one, it could be both. So that's how I ended up managing to park, but it was just a headache. Anytime you had to do anything on a motorcycle, it was cardboards, it was oil everywhere. I would have to like sneak in my smaller bike onto the elevator at night so I can work on it. Yeah, no, it became a huge problem for me. So that's when I realized that I had to open a shop where I can work on and that everyone else can work on. So just before I get into the shop, I'll tell you what it's been working. So we've been open for a year, and this is the reason why it's been working in Toronto. So there's been a huge rise of motorcycles in the past 5 years in Toronto. We have a lot of motorcycle meets, like Lakeshore and Leslie, which it just started out of nowhere. People meet at Tim Hortons. Before you know it, every Thursday night, 2,000 bikes show up in the parking lot. And as long as you're driving a Tim Hortons Cup, you're not loitering, so you can stay around just do your thing. We've also had the Moto Social. I don't know if any of you have heard of it. It's been going actually international. We have it in Vancouver. We have it. Well, it's been in Vancouver, Ottawa, Montreal, and in South Africa. So 3,000-4,000 bikes show up in Toronto's first Wednesday of each month. It's a Toronto event started in Toronto. And lastly, we started our own thing, which is at Espresso Saturdays. People come in, they have espresso, and then just talk. And we've actually had a pretty big turnaround. We also have a lot of motorcycle events in Toronto. Mountain Rockers, and then we also have Freedom Machine, which is an old vintage and custom bike shows. So the Toronto motorcycle community has been growing crazy in the past 5 years. For the first year, we're actually going to have our first motorcycle film festival. So also the reason why it's been working is we've actually campaigned a lot with City Council for a motorcycle-friendly city. So in Toronto, street paid parking, you actually don't have to pay, it's completely free, as long as you're parked properly. And the reason why that came about was because they were putting tickets on motorcycle for paid parking. People would take it to court, and they just say, oh, my ticket flew off, or someone stole it. But now, with the new pay with phone, they were actually going to switch that. And we actually had to do a lot of campaigning with City Hall to keep it in place as is. Another thing that we managed to get was the HOV lanes. You're actually allowed to ride on your motorcycle by yourself in the HOV lanes, which is kind of nice, especially when there's lots of traffic. We've been working on getting it through the province because only in Toronto can you do that. Outside of Toronto, you're not allowed any provincial highway. You're not allowed to ride any motorcycle, so that's something we're working on. So the housing market in Toronto is blown up. People keep calling it a bubble, but 5 years ago they were calling it a bubble. People were selling their houses to go on rent until the bubble popped, and prices just keep going and going and going, like ridiculous. A lot of condos are being built to accommodate the density. So we're actually the 9th city in the world for the amount of condos that we have, which has been helping us a lot because then people don't have the space to work on, like that experience that I just explained to you. Affordability of housing is like I said, it's crazy. So I actually pulled that up today because I wanted to have the most recent one. This house it's in a decent neighborhood. It's not the most expensive neighborhood, and you're looking at almost $1,400,000, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-washroom. Doesn't even have a garage to work on your bike. And then what's been happening is they're tearing those houses up, building 2-story houses, which are worth $2-3 million. So affordability of housing is impossible in Toronto. And like I said, there's a lot of condos going up. So we've taken advantage of the sharing economy. So the amount of tools and equipment that we have, not counting like the space, you need to have almost $100,000 to get all that in your garage. So we have all the tools, all the equipment, and then even more so we have the knowledge. A lot of times you see people come in, have never worked on a bike. Oh, how do you change the oil on my bike? And then they're not asking me, they're asking someone else working on a bike. And the person would come over and just start working with them, and instead of working on their own bike, they would be working on a bike, a neighbor's bike or something. So this is actually not a new, this isn't new, the shared economy. In Germany, they used to do it with farming. Big co-ops, they would raise money, or they would rent out equipment so they can improve their farming, and they would just getting into it, kind of similar to what we're doing. So, in fact, 40% of Americans are using the shared economy today. So another few big examples of the shared economy would be something like Airbnb, which I'm sure many of you have used. Uber, those two companies are actually the biggest hotel company out there, and they don't even own any hotels, and the biggest taxi cab company, and they don't even own any cabs, and it's all shared. We also have something called Bike Pirates for bicycles. Same idea, you go in, this is Toronto based, you go in, you work on your bike, they help you, they have the tools, and we have, oh that didn't come up too long, and they have the tool library, full carpentry shop, you pay a membership fee, and you get to use their tools, you get to rent out tools, take them out and use them at home. So there's a lot of that going on in Toronto. And then there's us, we've been working for a year. So we try to be extremely friendly, everyone's welcome, whether you have a bike or not, you can just come in to watch TV, to have a coffee, or just like hang out on the couch and just watch, you don't have to have a bike. Now we have bikes pickups, so we've been going out to pick up bikes for people that have project bikes that don't actually run. We've been getting a lot of films actually, and photography done in our shop. They come in, they pay a membership, and they just film for the day. But yeah, so let me explain to you how we work. So we have 3 layers of memberships. So our first layer will get you into the shop, and it'll give you 1 hour, so you can do something like an oil change or bleeding your brakes. This is monthly. So 1 hour, and then after it will lower your hourly rate to $30 an hour. The next one over is the aficionado. This one actually gives you 6 hours, and it gives you 6 hours, and it gives you 6 days of storage. So if you have a big job that you need to work on, and you need to leave your bike for whatever reason, you can leave it with us, and as long as it's off the lift, and then just come in and finish the work whenever you need to. And the last layer, which is more for people that are building like really custom bikes for huge jobs, it's the Moto Maniac. And that one actually gives you unlimited access to the shop, and it gives you unlimited storage for your bike, and that's only $200 a month. And it's been crazy.
I'm also someone who is staying in an Airbnb this weekend. I took Lyft to get here this morning, so the shared economy is definitely something that I'm practicing on an almost daily basis. So anyway, I'm curious to know, one thing that we're seeing, at least with this type of structure, is difficulty with sustainability. I know in Australia there was Custom Commune. They had issues basically with zoning based on where they were. Brother Moto in Atlanta ran into the same problem. They opened a shop, despite it being, again, a DIY shop. They weren't zoned for auto repair. So they had to move facilities, and that became a bit of a headache. So I'm curious to know how successful this business model is. What other items you market, whether t-shirts. I know a lot of the shops are also, they either add on or utilize coffee as a means of making ends meet. So I'm curious to know what else you have to do, or if literally just selling the memberships works.
No, so we've sold a lot of memberships. Like I said, sometimes we have to block the memberships. We also have a mechanic on site. So if it's too much for you, or if you just don't want to deal with the headache, which can become a headache sometimes, the mechanic just works on your bike, and that's actually where most of revenue-wise, where it comes from.
Really?
So just do it yourself alone, it's, unfortunately, and it's sad to say, at this point at least, it's not sustainable. However, I make sure between having a mechanic on site that can either work with your members on an hourly basis, or just do the work completely, that's been what we managed to do to sustain it.
How much is that an hour?
So right now, if we use like an actual mechanic to work with you, it's $89 an hour. If we use someone that is experienced, like someone like myself, we charge $30 an hour, and that's been huge. So it's on top of your membership.
Any other questions on the DIY community? Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that we've discussed is that as bikes evolve, they become harder for individuals to work on by themselves. So I can imagine that having the mechanics is not only a benefit, but maybe also essential in some cases, because there's a lot of things you can't do yourself, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of things are becoming software driven, which has been an issue for us. We actually had to get a GS 911 to work on a lot of BMWs, and we have a bike scanner to work on other brands. Here and there we get a bike that unfortunately, and it sucks to say, but it's a dealer job that needs to be done only by a dealership. But yeah, the mechanics are essential. And we get a lot of older bikes. For some reason, there seems to be a lot of bikes that are coming out of like garages just like crazy in the past, like I said, in the past 5 years, people were just keeping their bikes. And now we're getting all those bikes running. So something that they were riding with, they were 17, now they're riding it again when they're 50, 60. Yeah.
How much space do you have in your facility?
So currently we have 1,200 square feet, and we're looking into expanding that because we do need the space, especially for storage. Yeah.
How many lifts do you have?
We have 3 functional lifts that we're using right now, and there's 1 backup lift that we use.
Jill?
So I'm curious because shared economy is sort of one model that's a sort of broad category, right?
Right.
So within your actual entity, this twofold question. One, how long did it take you to organize? And who actually organized? Like what kind of structure of people who created this? Was it just you and your idea and then you got people together, or is it more of a collective of organizers? How does it actually run besides the monetary infusion?
We've been working on this since 2012, just gathering ideas and just a few friends just coming together. Oh, we need to do this. Do you have this tool? Can I borrow it? Can I come to your house and work on it? So that's kind of where it all grown through from. The big challenge has been in order to run a business like this, you need to have a lot of community. And it needs to be like huge community base. People need to come in and like many times people come in and just don't do anything. They just have a membership just for coming to drink coffee. And some of these members actually have a $200 membership just to drink coffee per month. And I'm grateful because they've been keeping us alive.
But at the end of the day, somebody has to sign legal papers and contracts, and so who does that?
So I've done, it's been a one-man show and a lot of support from my friends. I've had to hire lawyers to, anytime you sign up for membership, there's a huge liability waiver. We're essentially not responsible for anything that goes on in there. And then and another issue that we had was insurance, liability insurance. We were lucky enough to have our landlord's insurance do a blanket cover with us because no one wanted to insure us. And then a shop like this with insurance would be crazy to run.
It looks like, I mean, the few pictures I saw look like kind of a guy's place to hang out. Do you have any women?
Oh yeah. We're actually encourage a lot of women and have women night to come in and work on their bikes just by themselves. Just because I'll tell you a story. We had a girl come in. She told me, she's like, oh, I was so worried to come in. I told everyone that I was going there just in case if something happened. She was literally, when she was riding the thing, you can see the riding. You see the lines because of how nervous she was to register. So we're trying to encourage everyone, like literally everyone, to come in and enjoy it. If you look at our website, actually, we have in the About page, we have our vision, mission, values. And in there, I'll show you how welcoming we are and how respectful, and we just want everyone to come and enjoy themselves, whether you ride a little scooter or a massive party.
Brother Moto in Atlanta does the same thing. In fact, they're affiliated with the Lady Fingers of Atlanta, which is a local female riding club, primarily in the cafe racer scene. So you're right, and that's at least whether it's an album release party or a photo exhibit. They do other types of things, and again, that welcomes in. I've joked about it a few times here. How the hipster scene in Atlanta draws in. Whether it's artists or musicians, photographers. they will, as I think is the case with your shop, they just hang out. You know, they'll go and have a coffee and watch, you know, as somebody's wrenching on a bike. The whole issue of being very communal and open, I think is essential to this business model. Otherwise, if you limit anybody, you're basically turning away what could be a potential member.
Do you have a limit on the age?
So we don't actually have a limit. We do require parental consent to come in if you're 18 and under. So everyone can come in and work on their bike. Obviously not small children, but if you're working on your bike and you have your driver's license, we also require insurance on your bike in order to be at the shop, because part of the agreement that we have is if anything happens, you go through your insurance. So they have to have insurance on their bike. So 16 and up, mostly, is what we're seeing. But you don't see many 16, 17-year-olds unless they're driving their Ninja 250 and they crash and they come to us. Because it's a lot cheaper to fix it yourself than going to a dealership.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you ever see like a dad and son come in and work on bike.
I haven't experienced that, to be honest. But I'm sure it's a matter of time.
Kristen, so there's a question for both of you. And stop me if I'm kind of getting in the weeds, but I'm familiar with Brother Moto. Nashville has several kind of co-op shops. DC does as well. I'm curious, where do you guys see this business model like fitting in with like the overall gentrification of a city? Because I always notice like these spots don't exist in cities that have not gentrified yet. And so the gentrification kind of creates the space for the business, but then on the other end, once it kind of reaches an apex, you get closed down. I mean, is that kind of the key to the business model, is figuring out how to push that until, you know, the very last minute?
Yeah, actually, the area that we're in, it's called Leaside. It was an industrial area 20 years ago, and now it's just smaller. It's getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and hopefully, with we're also going into selling actual merchandise, and as long as we can keep it alive, money-wise, we're able to get a bigger space where gentrification doesn't hit us as bad. Part of the reason why we've done so well is because we are in the middle of the city. We could have gotten a huge space just on the suburbs, but then it's a matter of like, you're just limiting yourself to a certain area of the city, and you don't really want that. But yeah, it's a ticking time bomb, you're right.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Atlanta, having been there 10 years, more now, I've been there since '99, I've seen all of the urban bike shops in Atlanta move out, just because space got too expensive. It was a simple dollars and cents thing. So they're all in the suburbs. They're all outside of our beltway, which is inconvenient as hell for any urban rider. You know, you have to either trailer or get a tow or whatever. In the case of Brother Moto, they've been very opportunistic as far as what neighborhoods they've selected. They started in East Atlanta, which, since I've moved there, I've always heard, well, it's the next big neighborhood. But it's not. I mean, it's just continually trying to, and it just always hits. It's fine because it keeps that scene. It keeps, you know, very popular with, you know, again, with, you know, there's a very hip bar and restaurant scene there, and they worked their way in. They actually moved closer to the city, which I think has been beneficial. They moved off of Memorial Avenue, which the area they moved into was a very industrialized area, but industry isn't there anymore. All those buildings and factories have been closed down. So I don't know the specifics on Brother Moto, but I do know they got an investor when they moved into this new property. And that investor has been doing a lot of the logistics that they otherwise, I mean, having met the owners and operators a few times, you know, they're bright kids, but whether or not they were going to be able to navigate everything from lease agreements to the legal issues to, you know, those kind of things, they brought in a third party. But again, I don't know the specifics. And I know in their new space, they're doing a lot better than they were in the other one because they now have retail, coffee, etc. So they have other ways to sustain themselves. But whether or not that will last, you know, I don't know that Memorial Avenue will ever be, you know, completely developed. So they may have picked smartly as far as their neighborhood. Who knows?
Does Ontario require bike inspections every year?
No, so Ontario requires a safety certification when you do an ownership transfer. And we have a mechanic that does safety certification for us. And he's been coming in and does them from us. So we have inspection nights twice a month. And that's, people know that if they're gonna do an inspection, that's when they come, that's when the mechanic will be there.
They only need it when either they're buying or selling.
Exactly, and the nice thing about having an outside mechanic is all the certification goes through his company, so all the liability gets put on him.
In the case of Georgia, it drives me nuts, but Georgia has no safety regulations. The only thing we do have is an emissions, and it's literally, they just plug it into the chip in your car and truck. Motorcycles are exempt from that. So there are no safety requirements on a motorcycle. With one caveat, if you buy an 85 or prior machine and are non-titled, so Georgia's kind of a sticky state with regard to title. They won't title anything 85 or prior just because the vehicle's so old it could get complicated and they don't want to deal with it. So what you do have to do is you have to go to the police. The police will fill out a safety. They won't touch the machine other than turn the key on, make sure the lights work, fire up the engine. That's it, and then you can go ahead and get your bike registered. So absolutely no safety requirements. I've seen some shady stuff leave Brother Moto. And I've bought some, fairly bad machines. I've got a GS 850 GL that the former work that they did on it has just been horrific. So like you, I've been buying old used carburetors off of eBay because they drilled out ports and just made a mess of it. So,
How's that bandit?
the Bandit's still doing well. There's a whole backstory. David.
Yeah, I just want to sort of ask a question about, who are the motor curious? What percentage of members are motor curious, and do they operate?
So we mostly get the aficionados, the one under the the aficionados are the biggest memberships. We do get some motor curious, especially with the newer bikes, because they think all they'll need is like a chain adjustment or an oil change. Percentage-wise, I would say it's about 50, 25, 25. Yeah.
And do they tend to operate?
They only tend to upgrade when they foresee something is coming up in regards to their bike, like a big maintenance or something broke on their bike that they need to get fixed.
But you don't need to be motor curious to have a car.
So through the week you do, except for Espresso Saturdays. Espresso Saturdays is a free-for-all. Anyone can come in and get their coffee.
Anyone else? Yeah.
I'm just wondering how much you think, for lack of a more specific term, the urban aesthetic supports the business model, in the sense that, it's obviously city-driven in terms of its location, but there's just a part of me that says that, this probably wouldn't necessarily play in the greater suburbs of Washington, D.C., or someplace like that. It seems like a very urban phenomenon. I wonder
Yeah, I think so. I've been thinking about it as well, whether you can open up a shop in outside of Toronto, like in some place like a small town like Barrie or something. And other than people needing specific tools, most people have a space to work, a garage, and then any major project, and they would take into a mechanic. So yeah, I think it is a very city-driven business.
I agree with that. I would also throw out that Brother Moto has at least tried to be very friendly with the community, and specifically other businesses. So they do bike nights at a couple of restaurants. Right now they're doing, it's kind of fun, they're doing what they're calling their world tour. So they're picking restaurants that are, an Italian restaurant one week, they're picking a Japanese restaurant the next. So they're using the city of Atlanta as a means of, again, seeing the world. But in doing so, you get 30, 40, 50 motorcyclists, on a bike, show up at a bar or restaurant. They clearly like that. To the point where they've got an ongoing relationship with at least one or two restaurants in the city for their bike nights, and all those restaurants have been very welcoming. you know, we obviously occupy a fair bit of their parking lots, and we, you know, tend to eat and then kick tires for a long time. So, you know, the churn might be a bit of an issue, but, you know, other people get moto curious. They see the motorcycles, want to spend some time and talk to folks. It seems to be a draw, and it's a win-win for just about everybody. Any other questions? Yeah. Susan?
I'm assuming you have music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do, and we run everything from an iPad, and you can come in and choose whatever music you want to play. You're the first one there. Yeah.
Because then you could do special events as well. I don't know if you have, where you would have like a DJ and, you know, have something.
Yeah, you can have live events, or yeah, definitely something we should look into.
Any other questions?
Are people paying $200 a month for winter storage?
So
Because it seems like you have limited space, right? I mean, city, especially compared to that.
Yeah.
Toronto, there's a big demand for winter storage.
yeah, so winter storage is usually not through a membership. If you're gonna store your bike and you're not going to work on it, we have just a storage deal that we do. So if you get an oil change with oil, and then you get an hour before the winter and an hour after the winter, you do whatever you need to your bike, and then we take it out somewhere else to a storage unit.
Oh,
Key to
so you have
storage.
a space somewhere else?
Yeah.
Well, that's smart. Yeah, that's heavy. Any other questions?
Well, how much does that bring in? How many people do you have?
Last year we had 32 bikes in a storage unit. Yeah. And this year it was crazy because we had a short winter. So the storage agreement is that you get it 1st of May, but people want to ride in like end of February. And usually the people that wanted to ride end of February was the one with the bike right in the front. So we had to create a policy where like if you want to take your bike out early, you just have to pay the fee. Yeah.
And their insurance would be responsible for anything happening in that unit that you can burn down or something?
Yeah, so we any bike that we store is insured. I like to see how many people actually kept their insurance going. The thing about Toronto though, it's in Ontario actually, you can't insure a bike just for the summer. So they do a percentage. Each month is worth a certain percent. I think the first 3 months of spring are worth like 5%. The summer is worth another like 20% each month. So it's by a percentage, and then at the end of the summer, like late fall, you actually you can cancel your insurance if you want, but it's going to cost you the same. So people just keep their insurance year round.
And here in the States, it depends. I know, having lived in New Hampshire, you could basically leave just a very, very basic level of insurance over the winter, which would include fire, theft, you know, et cetera. In the case of Georgia, if you pull your insurance, you lose your tag. So it is an extreme deterrent from pulling your insurance, because otherwise you're going to lose your license.
And it's interesting because the storage is off-site, where it sounds like your insurance thing is through the building that you're in.
No, yes, you're right. But the insurance, when we get the storage unit, actually is insured. We try to put as much liability onto the consumer, just to protect ourselves, but we do have insurance through the storage unit company.
So you don't put a trickle charger on your batteries?
So what we do is we actually get them to remove the battery, and we keep it trickle charged for them in the garage.
Have you had any issues with specialty tools? I mean, having worked on enough bikes, I know that that's sometimes the most expensive. I mean, sometimes the tool is more expensive than the fix. So, have you had issues with either, you know, specialty tools breaking? I'm just curious to know, like, what's your cycle of you know, needing to upgrade or repair the tools to do the job?
We haven't had very many broken tools. I mean, we've been on actual operation for just a year. However, we do have a policy where if you're within the $200 fee, you can request a specialty tool up to half the price of the membership, and it becomes obviously the garages too when people use it. Sometimes we get requests that are silly, but because it's a policy, we do something like a 50mm deep socket. When is that really going to get used up again? But it's our policy, so we go out and buy it. Yeah.
Anyone else? No? All right, well, we will break 30 minutes early. I'd like to thank Sergio for contributing.